I just want to say good afternoon and thank you very much for being here today. I particularly want to say also thank you to the many of you in the media who have reached out to offer your well wishes to the troopers. We greatly appreciate that. As you can imagine, it's always a tough day anytime one of the troopers gets injured, especially in the line of duty. So again, we appreciate those well wishes. At this time, I would like to introduce Colonel William Ross, and to my right, we have York County Sheriff Bill King, we have Chief Deputy Jeremy Forbes, we have Major Lucas Hare, and we have Major Scott Goslin. So I would like to invite Colonel Ross to the podium.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, folks, for being here. What we're going to do is go over kind of the sequence of events from last night, and we'll have an opportunity to have questions at the end, so if you just be patient. We'll get this out to you, give you the update as to how these folks are doing. There's also a criminal investigative point to this, and I'll turn that over to Sheriff King and Chief Deputy Forbes to discuss the criminal investigation. First, I just want to thank not only the York County Sheriff's Department for assisting us that night and also conducting the criminal investigation. It shows a great partnership between the two organizations. We had assistance from a lot of agencies. The Kennebunk Police Department gave us a reconstructionist. The Scarborough Police Department assisted with a blood draw. The many fire and rescue departments that came to this scene and the work that they did was truly unbelievable. Hollis Rescue, Buxton, Goodwin's Mills, and Waterboro all responded to the scene to help take care of everyone that was injured. And lastly, I want to thank the Augusta Regional Communications Center for getting the help that these guys needed as quickly as they could and relaying information, in addition to the Biddeford Emergency Communications Center. So to get into the evening, this occurred last night, the 27th, at about 10 o'clock. The troopers involved were Trooper Jake Mowery, Trooper David Lemieux, Trooper Dakota Stewart, and Trooper Recruit Shane St. Pierre. Around 10 o'clock last night, they responded to a family dispute. The incident occurred on Hollis Road, which is Route 202 in Hollis, by the intersection with Star Lane. It's a straight piece of roadway on a pretty heavily traveled road in York County. Troopers were conducting interviews at the end of the driveway with some of the people that were involved in this incident, and the 3 police cruisers were on scene. 1 was parked in the driveway, and 2 police cruisers were parked in the eastbound breakdown lane just outside the driveway and just west of the driveway. So in very close proximity to each other. The troopers were standing in front of the vehicle that was parked in the driveway. At about 11:12 p.m., a 2017 Subaru WRX operated by 24-year-old Tyler Croston, that's Tyler Croston of Westbrook. He also had a passenger, an Amber Jadero, a 27-year-old female that was in the car as well. They were traveling eastbound on Route 202 in Hollis. As the vehicle approached the scene where the troopers were, the vehicle veered off the roadway between the vehicle cruisers, or actually in between the vehicle cruisers and the ditching or the wooded area. And in doing so, the vehicle struck all 4 of the state police troopers that I had mentioned before. All 4 of those troopers were struck by that vehicle, operated by Mr. Croston. The people that were being interviewed were not injured. They were not struck by the vehicle, and very fortunate that they weren't. All 4 of the troopers were transported to Maine Medical Center for a variety of injuries. I'll go into some of those injuries and the most recent update on what those are before I finish up today. Those injuries were consistent of broken bones to a variety of extremities, All 4 of the troopers were incapacitated. They were conscious and alert, but in significant distress at the scene. Early in the morning, I arrived at Maine Medical Center, and I spoke to each one of the troopers. Again, they were conscious at the time. They were in obvious pain, and all of them were being assessed by Maine Medical Center. I'd like to thank the hospital as well for the great work that they did. We essentially took over a wing of the hospital to have them take care of our troopers. The operator of the vehicle was also injured and was also transported to Maine Medical Center as well. The crash is being investigated by the York County Sheriff's Office. In a second here, I'll turn this over to Sheriff King and Chief Deputy Forbes to go over the particulars of that criminal investigation, and they can shed some light onto what the status of that is right now. Then I'll come back and finish up with a couple of remarks, and then open it up to questions for you folks. So for right now, I'll turn it over to Sheriff King and Chief Deputy Forbes.
Thank you, Colonel. It's always difficult when a brother law enforcement officer is injured in the line of duty, and that's what occurred last night. We enjoy a very collaborative relationship with the Maine State Police, and through our call share agreement, Hollis is actually patrolled by the State Police. They did give us a call after this incident. We responded, and we can't comment too much on much of the evidence that's being collected, but that was coordinated very well between Chief Deputy Forbes and the State Police Patrol Commander. I'm going to turn it over to the Chief Deputy so he can talk about specifics about what we're doing and what the charges are on Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Sheriff. When I arrived on scene last night, it was pretty clear that this would be, going towards a criminal prosecution based on the evidence. There is dash cam video of the vehicle going off the road and striking the troopers. Statements from witnesses at the scene. There was a possibility of marijuana use by the operator of the vehicle, and evidence at the scene backing that up. When he was transported to Maine Medical Center, a DRE was conducted at Maine Medical Center. A drug expert put him through a series of tests that he consented to at the hospital, and that showed that he was on an impairment of a narcotic. We took blood at the hospital also. That blood has been sealed, and we will be doing a search warrant with the hospital to get the records on his blood work from the hospital. And he also did consent to a blood draw. The vehicle has been secured. We did not search the vehicle last night. We're going to secure the vehicle for a search warrant at a later time. So we have not gone through the vehicle yet. But based on the DRE at the hospital, based on statements, and based on other evidence we found at the scene, and we consulted with the York County District Attorney's Office several times throughout the night, he was charged with aggravated OUI due to the injuries to the troopers, reckless conduct with a dangerous weapon being the vehicle, in violation of conditional release. He was on violation bail conditions from a previous arrest. So, he was charged with those. We could have more charges in the future, depending on how the investigation goes. But our next step is search warrant of the vehicle, and we'll also be doing, a search warrant from the hospital for his blood record, which will show hopefully what he was under the influence. So it's going to take some time, but that's where we stand right now as far as the investigation. And I'll turn it back over to Colonel Ross.
Thank you, Chief Deputy Forbes and Sheriff King. This is a good opportunity to remind everyone just how dangerous these jobs are, whether you're a state trooper, whether you're a deputy, whether you're a municipal officer. Of the 12 line of duty deaths the state police has, 8 of them involve motor vehicle crashes or traffic incidents. FBI statistics show that in 2022, 35 law enforcement officers were killed in a motor vehicle crash. It's dangerous. These roadways can be extremely dangerous. The state of Maine has a move over law, and that's there to protect not only the police, fire and rescue, wrecker operators, whether you're working on the Turnpike or Department of Transportation, or you're working these many construction sites that you see throughout these roadways in Maine, the move over laws to get people to recognize you need to slow down, you need to be aware of what's going on, and you need to move over to protect these people. All too often these tragedies occur and they're preventable. And when you have something that's preventable, the more education we can get out there, the more we can use, examples like this, as unfortunate as they are, to get the word out that people need to pay attention, slow down, and move over. The last thing I'll do is I'll bring you up to speed on the injuries of the 4 troopers. Trooper Dakota Stewart was treated and released from Maine Medical Center earlier this morning. And he had some fractures of the lower extremity. We'll still be assessing what lays ahead for him. He'll be out of work for a period of time. Probably the most severely injured was Trooper Jake Mowery. He is in serious but stable condition. He is out of surgery right now, again, for fractures to lower extremities. Trooper St. Pierre is still in the ER awaiting surgery. Again, serious but stable condition. And Trooper Lemieux was discharged this morning with a fracture to a lower extremity, where he will be out for a period of time while they're assessing what the next steps are for them. All 4 of these troopers were part of the Southern Field Troop, which is commanded by Lieutenant Kevin Burton in the York County area. I'll open up now for questions that you might have and see what we can answer. But again, I thank you for coming here. And this is a difficult time for the state police. It's a difficult time for law enforcement. Fortunately, we're able to talk to these folks, and this didn't end up in a bigger tragedy than it already is. But I'll take some questions right now or open it up to people up here on the stage.
I have one for the sheriff. Since they're in the investigation, correct?
Yes.
Are you investigating this as an intentional act?
Well, just to repeat the question, are we investigating this as an intentional act? We're still in the throes of the investigation, so we don't know that. There were no breaking. There didn't appear to be any skid marks or anything like that. Again, it's very preliminary in the investigation stage.
My question's for State Police. Can you talk about what it's like for this incident to happen, especially with the recruit who had only been on for about a month?
The trooper recruit in this incident was part of a field training program. And again, there's no routine calls. We call them routine calls, but there is no routine call. This was a family fight. Again, no routine call that these folks were at, and a vehicle comes down the road and rips right through before them as they're conducting business. We spend a considerable amount of time on training, vehicle placement, not only the basic law enforcement training program, but also the state police specific training programs. The field training officers that are in charge of any of the recruits are experienced officers. And, this is an unfortunate incident, which has a criminal investigation attached to it. So I don't want to comment any further on the criminal investigation. It's the York County Sheriff's investigation. But I think that might answer some more questions as this evolves.
Can you tell us anything about how fast the vehicle was moving when it hit the officers, and whether or not it bounced off any cruisers before it hit?
None of the cruisers were struck, and in terms of the speed, there's a reconstructionist that might be able to make a determination there. We don't have that information right now.
But no signs of braking, so
it was moving.
Have State Police noticed an increase in drunk driving incidents?
I think it's always a constant in terms of statistics. I think traffic violations are certainly on the rise. I think we see that through our field troops and through our other law enforcement partners. Particularly in the summer months, there's a lot of people in Maine. There's a lot of people on Maine's roadways, and at and there's not a lot of law enforcement officers out there on any given night. So, you know, these things do happen.
Well, speaking of the fact that there's, you know, a staffing shortage at the state police department, but departments actually across the state, can you talk about what it's like now to unfortunately have all these officers that are hurt?
This presents a challenge for the Southern Field Troop. All 4 of those members were part of the Southern Field Troop, so it will present a scheduling challenge. But again, working with not only the York County Sheriff's Department, with the call sharing agreement we have with them, certainly overtime details, and being part of a larger agency, you know, we're able to pull resources, and our people will come together, we'll get it done, but it does make it difficult.
Can you tell us anything about the domestic violence investigation and why it was being conducted so close to the roadway as opposed to further, you know, towards the house?
I think that's with the investigating officers there. Like I said, there's no routine call, but certainly there's nothing to this call that I've seen that seems out of character or unnecessary with respect to the actions of the troopers. And, you know, when you talk about the realm of possibilities of what these guys could and couldn't do, that's a big place. And for now, I think I want to focus on the troopers that are injured and let the Sheriff's Department run with this criminal investigation.
But for the investigators, if I might, I just want to ask a clarifying question, because you mentioned suspected marijuana use and that you did some drug screening at the hospital, so I guess I'm unclear. Is the OUI charge operating under the influence of marijuana, or is it alcohol, or cocaine, or something else?
It's operating under the influence on drugs.
Of drugs, okay.
And when we do the search warrant, the blood work, we'll be able to decipher what the drugs are.
Gotcha, thank you.
Do you have incidents like this? Does that force you to go back and look at some of your own procedures to make sure that officers are protected on the scene, whether that's, you know, calling in additional units or, you know, when you have something like this happen, how does that, does it prompt an internal look at your own policies?
You're constantly looking at that. We constantly look at our policies and procedures all the time. But sometimes when, you know, the external forces come into play here and you have, you know, a potential criminal act, there's just so much you could do. You know, what we do is try and limit the risk that we put our people in, but the unpredictableness of, you know, motor vehicles and the operators of these motor vehicles makes it real challenging. There's never a time when there's zero risk. And I'm unfortunate this is one of those times. Something we've never seen before either. I don't remember any of the, you know, multiple injuries to a motor vehicle crash involving certainly our state troopers or anything of this type, or in certainly New England in the last 20 or so years that I've been around. So this is something different for all of us.
Is there anything being set up for benefit or anything for the troopers, the same thing that the state police are doing, or the police union that are being set up to help with any medical bills, things like that?
There's nothing I'm aware of right now, but you know, we typically come together for our people and take care of them. So I don't think anything would change.
You mentioned the positioning of some of the cruisers and that this was a long, straight stretch of road that they were on at the time. Do you know if they had their lights on, if their blues on? I'm wondering how visible was this group of troopers?
Yeah, the emergency lights were on. It was very clear. And if anyone's familiar with Route 202 in Hollis, it's coming into Waterboro. There's some straightaways there. This was on a straightaway. It's a safe spot to be. It was a clear night. There was plenty of visibility. It wasn't on a curve or anything like that.
Just so I understand, the cruisers were lined up on the road, and then there was some ditching, and then there was another cruiser up the driveway. And you're saying that, was there just barely a car's length between like the back bumper of the cruiser and the ditch, and somehow the car just threaded that needle, and the officers are in front of the car talking to the people, and they just clipped the officers?
The
Or
best
is there
way to
anything else?
the best way to describe it is like threading a needle. From the rear end of that cruiser parked into the driveway to the vehicles parked in the breakdown lane. Very difficult thing to try and do. It would be a difficult thing to do. But folks, I thank you for coming today. Thank you for getting this message out. you know, we wish our troopers well and a quick recovery. If we have any further updates, we'll get them through Shannon Moss, our Public Information Officer. So again, thank you.